I'm Gary Anthony Ramsay with your Hour News Now Rewind. Stories making headlines for the week ending September 18th, 2010. Our top stories include: Congress passes the President's Small Business Bill. 1 in 4 Americans are now living in poverty. A South Carolina Confederate party embarrasses the GOP. A Washington State woman who says a black woman attacked her with acid now admits the story was a lie. The French Senate approves a ban on the use of Muslim veils. And black students in Massachusetts are outscoring their peers on the SAT. Our top story: the president is pushing his tax repeal proposal straight to the people in the wake of Republican resistance. Barack Obama wants to restore pre-George Bush tax cuts for the wealthy, but GOP leadership says not so fast. New polls seem to be playing in favor of the White House. A CBS News New York Times poll says 53% of Americans support President Obama's plan to end the Bush-era tax cuts for the wealthy. Only 38% think all the tax cuts should be extended. A new poll by the Associated Press also shows a clear majority. 54% of respondents think the tax cuts for the wealthy should expire on schedule at the end of the year. 44% oppose the idea.
Let me be clear to Mr. Boehner and everybody else. We should not hold middle-class tax cuts hostage any longer.
In all, the White House says that ending the Bush-era tax cuts over 10 years would restore $750 billion to the budget. Well, another chilling survey may be giving Barack Obama ammunition in what is apparently a rich versus the poor strategy. It appears the recession is forcing more American families into poverty. The U.S. Census now shows that some 44 million people, roughly 1 in 7 Americans, now live in poverty. The poverty line last year was $11,000 for one person and $22,000 for a family of 4. More than 25%, or 1 in 4 African Americans, now live in poverty. It's one of the highest percentages among ethnic groups in the U.S. Well, one reason for that increase is the loss of jobs and small businesses being crushed by the economic downturn. The Senate passed a bill that many hope will get small business back on track. After months of delays, 2 Republicans crossed party lines to support the bill, which will create a $30 billion small business lending fund and provide $12 billion in tax breaks to help companies invest and hire. The bill now heads to the House, which is expected to pass it swiftly. Still waiting in the wings for the Senate to act are thousands of black farmers across the country who are owed $1.2 billion by the federal government. The Senate continues to quibble about how to pay the money that was awarded to the farmers in court. Last week, National Black Farmers Association President John Boyd rode a tractor to the nation's capital in protest of the delay. The farmers sued the government 15 years ago and proved that black farmers were being discriminated against for loans and other resources that were readily made available to white farmers. Well, some of those black farmers live in South Carolina, and last week they got an opportunity to see what some of their state officials might actually think about them working their own land as free men. At a dinner for the Republican Women's Conference, the President Pro Tem of the South Carolina Senate, Glenn McConnell, sported a Confederate uniform while he took pictures with African Americans who were dressed like slaves. After being blasted by Democrats and the NAACP, McConnell said it was just a reenactment of the history of the state. He said, quote, "The reenactors that were there, of which I was one, all portrayed historical roles, as did the Geechee Gullah singers." The South Carolina GOP nominee for governor, Nikki Haley, is a woman of Indian descent, and its candidate for Congress in the 1st Congressional District, Tim Scott, is black. Well, the man who may have tried to blow up a commercial jetliner on Christmas Day has fired his attorneys and insists on representing himself. Umar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib is accused of trying to detonate the device that was sewn into his underwear. In a Detroit federal court, the 23-year-old Nigerian asked questions about pleading guilty to some of the counts. Prosecutors say they have not offered Abdul-Muttalib a deal. In Maryland, gunshots ring out at Johns Hopkins Hospital. A doctor escapes death, but a patient and her son are now dead. Investigators say this all started a little before 11 a.m. on Friday. 50-year-old Warren Davis apparently got some bad news about his mother's medical condition. He pulled out a pistol from his waistband, shot the doctor, and as police closed in on the hospital, retreated to his mother's room where he shot her and then himself. A Washington State woman who claimed that she was attacked by a black woman with acid now admits that she inflicted the injuries on herself and that her entire story was a lie. Bethany Sturl got worldwide attention and even donations with her claim back in August. But less than a week later, a black woman was attacked in the same way in Arizona. Derry Velarde was attacked with acid by a stranger right outside her apartment. Investigators confronted Ms. Sturl with inconsistencies in her story, and then she confessed that she threw acid on herself and made the whole thing up. It's not clear if the second attack was a copycat crime or even retaliatory in nature. One of the living central figures of New York's Crown Heights riots of 1991, a man whose weapon of choice may have been a knife, was himself stabbed last weekend. Lemrick Nelson Jr. was found unconscious near his car with a bloody ice pick found nearby. Nelson was taken to Harlem Hospital where he remains in stable condition. A then teenage Lemrick Nelson was part of a group of young men who surrounded Hasidic student Yankel Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum was stabbed and then died. 3 days of rioting broke out in Brooklyn. Blacks were initially angry because a Hasidic man ran over and killed 7-year-old Gavin Cato. After a hung jury and an acquittal, Nelson was convicted in federal court for violating Rosenbaum's civil rights. He served 10 years in prison. In your Our News Now World Wrap, the French Senate approves a measure that will ban women from wearing veils in public. The bill makes it illegal to wear garments such as the niqab or burqa, which incorporate a full face veil anywhere in public.
It is a law against individual liberty, freedom of religion, freedom of movement, liberty of conscience. Therefore, given that is a law that is unlawful, I cannot obey a law that restricts my liberty.
President Sarkozy is expected to sign the measure as soon as it hits his desk. It's estimated that about 2,000 to 3,000 women wear full veils in France. A former Nigerian military strongman decides to give democracy a chance as he throws his name into the hat to run for president. Ibrahim Babangida, who ruled the country for 8 years as a general, announced that he'll be running in the 2011 election. This drew immediate criticism from current President Goodluck Jonathan, who has also said he will run in the January contest. Nigeria became a democracy in 1999, but elections have been mired in corruption ever since. That's your World Wrap. In entertainment news, the mother of Michael Jackson is suing the promoter of his last tour, claiming that they were responsible for hiring the doctor who gave the icon a fatal dose of an anesthetic. Katherine Jackson says AEG didn't provide proper medical care for her son during the run-up to his concert series. She also claims they hired and controlled Dr. Conrad Murray, the physician who gave Jackson the deadly dose of propofol. AEG denies any responsibility for Michael Jackson's death, saying that Murray, as a physician, had his own responsibilities for the care of the singer. Jackson died last year on June 25th at the age of 50. And finally, educators all across the country are either touting or weeping over math, reading, and writing scores from SATs that were given in the spring. There's apparently good news for African American children who attend public schools in Massachusetts, as they are outperforming their peers nationwide. Their scores jumped 8 points overall in reading, 9 points overall in math, and 7 points overall in writing. For a complete look at any of the stories you've seen on The Rewind, remember, as always, go to the bottom of the web page, find the link of the story you'd like to see, and click your way through. That's your Our News Now Rewind for this week. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsay.